Secant Filaments are new Warlock Exotic boots, and they go perfectly with Void builds in the Witch Queen expansion. Today I'm going to dive into the Secant Filaments, why they're good, how to get them, plus a look at a Void Warlock build with the Secant Filaments. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content, and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. And roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games aren't subscribed. So subscribe today and never miss an update. Well, first of all today, let's have a look at the exotic armour in question, and these are the Secant Filaments. So they are exotic Warlock leg armour, and they come with the perk Devouring Rift. So casting an Empowering Rift will grant you Devour, and damage dealt by you and your allies from within your Empowering Rift will disrupt combatants. So quick reminder about Devour. So while Devour is active, final blows restore health and extend Devour itself. So the major benefit here is that you have an Empowering Rift, and that increases your weapon damage for those inside it. Therefore, given you can activate Devour, you can increase your damage and also restore your health at the same time. Well, next up, let's have a look at how to get these Secant Filaments in Destiny 2. So Secant Filaments, they're one of the newer exotic pieces of armour introduced in the Witch Queen DLC, specifically in Season of the Risen. So previous to Beyond Light and these new armour pieces being introduced, exotic armour was acquired at random through exotic engrams or campaign story content. Well, now you've got a way to target farm exotic pieces of armour through Legend and Master Lost sectors. So if you complete these activities solo, there's a chance at the exotic armour to drop for you. Every day, the Legend and the Master Lost sectors rotate, with 2 available each day across the planets and the moons. Well, as well as the location for the Legend and the Master Lost sectors rotating, the rewards, they rotate too, with a different piece, head, arms, chest and legs available each day. So if you want to check out the location and the rewards, then you can do so in-game by completing the Lost Sector on the regular difficulty, and then you can check on the map. The Legend and the Master Lost sectors are indicated as a blue shield icon, and another good way to check is a great website called todayindestiny.com, and I'll quickly tell you what the location is, plus what the reward is too. Well, to get these Secant Filaments, you want to look out for the exotic leg reward. Then, if you complete the Legend or Master Lost sector solo as a Warlock, you'll have a chance for that exotic to drop for you. If you don't get it the first time, keep trying, and you'll get it after a few tries. Well, next up, let's have a look at a Secant Filaments Warlock PVE build. So first of all, looking at the subclass, I'm using a Void subclass, and this is really taking advantage of Void 3.0. So looking at the class ability first, I'm using an Empowering Rift. For our super, you can choose any, and for the grenade, I'm using a Vortex grenade. However, the only one you have to use is the Empowering Rift, as that is a prerequisite for the Secant Filaments. Vortex grenades are really good, and we're going to use something called Chaos Accelerant to enhance them. Next up, let's have a look at our aspects. So first of all, I'm using Child of the Old Gods. So you cast your Rift to summon a Void Soul, and when you damage an enemy with your weapon, your Void Soul will launch itself towards them and detonate nearby, attaching a draining tendril, and that will deal damage and weaken the target. When your Void Soul deals damage, it restores either melee and grenade energy if you're running a Health Rift, or health if you're running an Empowering Rift. So in this case, we are running an Empowering Rift, so that is going to restore health. Next up, I'm using Chaos Accelerant, so you hold down the grenade button to overcharge your Vortex, Axiom Bolt Scatter, and Magnetic Grenade, and Magnetic Grenades overcharge into a handheld Supernova. But here we're going to be using Vortex Grenades, so that's definitely going to increase the impact of your grenades. Well, next up, let's have a look at the fragments. So first of all, I'm using Echo of Expulsion, so Void ability kills cause enemies to explode, plus you get an intellect bonus, and that is really good for getting your super back. I'm using Echo of Undermining, so Void grenades weaken enemies, but do be aware you have a discipline penalty. Then we've got Echo of Exchange, so melee final blows grant grenade energy, and this is going to help us get as many grenades as we possibly can. Well, for the exotic armour, we're using Secant Filaments, as this is the focus of the guide. And next up, let's have a look at the weapons. So first of all, in the kinetic slot, I'm using Reckless Endangerment, and that is a legendary kinetic shotgun with a lightweight frame, meaning it's got superb handling, and you move faster with the weapon equipped. This one is a static roll weapon, it comes fully masterworked, plus that is a great choice of perk, which you can mix and match to suit your playstyle. So here we got Perpetual Motion, Steady Hand, Swashbuckler and Snapshot Sights, so choose that combination that works for you. You can get this one by getting to rank 16 at a playlist vendor, like Zavala, Drifter or Lord Shaxx in Season of the Risen. Well, next up I'm using Collective Obligation. That one is an exotic pulse rifle. This one comes with the perks Void Leech. So the weapon leeches void debuffs when damaging targets that are suppressed, weakened or volatile. So once charged, you swap firing modes. So in this mode, damage from the weapon applies the same void debuffs that were leeched. Then finally, we've got Umbral Sustenance. So the weapon magazine is automatically reloaded when you gain Devour, a void overshield or become invisible. So given we're going to be getting Devour back a lot through our Empowering Rift, well, that is going to help us reload our magazine pretty constantly. We can get this weapon from the Vow the Disciple raid as a random drop from the final boss. So if you don't have access to this weapon, you can swap it out for another energy void weapon. For example, the SMG Funnel Web, that is very, very good. Or you've got the Enigma, and that is a glaive. Both are really good choices here. Finally, in the power slot, I'm going to be using Threaded Needle. This one is a linear fusion rifle. So it's another void weapon, a linear fusion rifle. And remember that linear fusion rifle's got a blanket 10% buff. Plus it's a void weapon, and it's going to work really, really well with our mods. Well, talking about mods, let's have a look at what we're using. So first of all, Volatile Flow. So picking up a Void Elemental Well grants your void weapons volatile rounds. I'm using Elemental Ordnance, so defeating a combatant with the grenade spawns an Elemental Well that matches your subclass energy type. I'm using Font of Might, so picking up an Elemental Well that matches your subclass energy grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same element. I'm also using Reaping Wellmaker, so after activating your class ability, your next weapon final blow on a combatant spawns a Void Elemental Well. And then finally, I'm using Bountiful Wells, so Elemental Well mods that cause you to spawn Elemental Wells, they can now stack, spawning additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. Well, we've got a fair amount going on there, but the TLDR is explosions and damage increase. So what we're trying to do here is create void elemental wells with a few mods like Elemental Ordnance, Reaping Wellmaker and Bountiful Wells. This is going to help us create an abundance of void elemental wells, which we're going to then use for a couple of purposes. We're going to be using our elemental wells to bolster our damage output through two main mods, Volatile Flow and Font of Might. Volatile Flow is going to grant volatile rounds to our void weapons, and we're going to be using two void weapons in the energy and the power slot. And that's going to help us explode our enemies. Well, then we got Font of Might, and that is going to give us a temporary boost to weapon damage. Well, finally, let's have a look at some gameplay and bring it all together. And here is what we are looking for. So first of all, the Void Elemental Wells. We're going to be creating a bunch of Elemental Wells primarily to bolster damage through our mod selection. Next up, we want to improve our damage. So we're going to be using our Empowering Rift, which is going to improve our damage first. But then we got Font of Might, and that is also going to work really well here to improve our overall damage output. Finally, it's all about explosions, so we're going to be using Volatile Flow, and also one of our fragments, the Echo of Expulsion, where void ability kills cause enemies to explode. So overall, I'm really impressed with the boots, and I'm going to play around with some other builds. So if you don't have all the pieces to the build, I would have a look at swapping out some of the weapons and the Elemental Well mods to see what works for you. I think the main thing you want to be looking for, obviously, are the Secant Filaments. They are the Warlock Exotic boots. You want to be using your Void subclass, and then basically you can mix and match and see what works for you in that build. So I'd love to hear what you think of the Secant Filaments, plus let me know about your builds down there in the comments. Well, that is it for this guide for how to get the Secant Filaments in Destiny 2, and as always, thank you so much for watching. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.